Yeah, so today we are going to start the concept of logical clocks in distributed systems. So I hope all of you would have got the understanding regarding physical clocks in distributed system. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So anybody who can tell me what exactly we have studied in physical clocks? Anyone? Roll number 74, BTech. Dhanusha. Is she there? Roll number 20. Roll number 20. Nishan Chauhan. Can you tell us something about physical clocks which you have studied in the last class?
Sorry, sir, I was not present in the last class.
Okay, I have shared the videos of last class as well in the same.
Yes, sir, I will.
Tanmay, Tanmay Chaudhary. Nilesh. Aditi.
Hello.
Yeah, Aditi.
Yes, sir. In last class, we have done some numericals on like Christian algorithm, and we have also studied about NTP synchronization model, including multicast, remote cast procedures, and symmetric model. And yeah, we have like studied about Berkeley's algorithm also, in which one of the machine is elected as master and other are slaves. And responsibility of master is to synchronize the system. And yes, sir, we have done like mostly 2-3 numericals in last class.
Okay, good. Good, Aditi. Fine. So, in physical clocks, if you remember, we would have got the lesson that it is not possible for us to work on physical clocks. The moment we talk about having distributed systems in our hand, then having physical clock are not going to work. So that is why we have come up with the solutions of logical clocks. So what we mean by logical clocks? First, let us just try to understand. So let us just try to understand the logical clock with the help of example. Since we have understood that it is very much difficult for us to synchronize all the systems with physical clocks. But what is more important in any system is the ordering of events, right? So there will be number of processes and there will be number of intercommunication in between those processes, right? And more importantly, or most importantly, in any system, or especially in distributed system, we want ordering to be maintained. For example, in ATM machine, in an ATM machine, the moment we go inside a ATM machine, inside a ATM, and what we want over there, we want a particular ordering. For example, the first event is going to be that you are going to insert the ATM card, right? Thereafter, you will enter few numbers to check out whether the keypad is working or not. Thereafter, you will choose your language, Hindi, English. Then thereafter, you will enter the PIN, right? Then you will select that what sort of transactions you want to have. Then you will enter the money. Then you will get the money, right? So this is the a tentative ordering of the events which will take place at the ATM, right? So, for example, what would happen if the moment you enter into the ATM and then the first event after just entering few numbers to check out the keypad, you got directly the money. Means the event which was supposed to be the last one has just happened in the second position, right? So it will break the functioning of the system. So you can say that this is not you wanted to have in that system. You want that the until unless I enter my PIN number and then I enter the amount should not be dispensed, right? So this is what you want to have in the ATM. So what I'm trying to convey that we want a certain ordering in that system. If until unless I enter my PIN number, the ATM machine should not prompt that enter the amount, right? And then until unless I enter the amount, the machine should not dispense any cash, right? First, I need to specify that what amount I want to withdraw. Only after that, the machine should be able to dispense some money, right? So there is a ordering, right? So until unless we have that ordering, the system should not work. So in logical clocks, we focus in that ordering only. Okay. So in any system, we expect that there are going to a certain number of events, right? So let's say we have got 4 events and some sort of ordering has to be maintained in these events. No matter how much amount of time each event is consuming. Getting a point? It is totally irrelevant. It should not be happen, okay, in the ATM, the moment you enter your card and then while entering the language details, it has taken, let's say, 1 minute and so. So since the time has been elapsed, sufficient amount of time has been elapsed, so that is why directly the money has been dispensed or directly the option of asking the withdrawal amount has been put at the front of you, right? It should not happen. It should happen only after we enter the PIN, right? So the ordering of events are very important in a distributed system. So if we have got 4 events, let's say E1, E2, E3 and E4. So we want that these events should occur in these orders only. Means E1 should be there before E2 and E2 should be there before E3 and E3 should be there before E4, right? So this is immaterial at all that how much time a particular event is taking. So until unless this particular event gets completed, we won't be able to move forward to the next event. Okay, and This sort of arrangement is called as a logical clock arrangement in distributed system. So more specifically, we are going to discuss in the coming slides. Okay, so I hope you would have got the overall idea what exactly we mean by the logical clocks or the logical ordering in distributed system. Apart from that, there are many things which are there, because of which we also use logical clocks or the logical ordering, and those reasons are, for example, what happened first, right? There are a number of applications where we want to know that which event has been happened first. For example, there may be a request. There may be a request for exclusive access. So the moment we have got a shared resources, right? Or you can say the number of resources are very limited and number of users are more. So in order to serve the request of all the users to the limited resources, we would like to know that which user has requested first, right? So whoever has been requested for resource first will be given the access accordingly, right? So this is one of the scenario. So whoever have requested first will be given the first access to the resources. And then we'll be also interested in interactive exchanges. Who answered first, right? For example, in this class, Aditi has answered first. So the moment I try to calculate the TM marks for all of you, I'll consider Aditi in the upper end, that Aditi has answered some of the questions of my quizzes. So there is a probability that Aditi is going to get the more marks in T, right? So who answered first? So these are the questions which will be answered the moment we try to establish a ordering in the events. Okay. So the debugging interactive exchanges and the request for exclusive access and the storage of data, right? So these are the potential things which we are able to solve with the help of ordering of events. Okay. Now, before moving further, we need to establish a model. So in distributed system, we are assuming that we are dealing with the asynchronous model. Okay. So let's say we have got n number of processes, and this is how we denote it. Okay. So let's say we have got a process Pi, and there can be n number of processes in that distributed system. Okay. And each process executes on a single processor. Okay. It should not be like that a single process can be executed at the number of processors. So each process is going to execute on a single processor only. Okay. Apart from that, the processors do not share memory. The process communicate only by message passing. Okay. So the number of processors which we are using in this distributed system model, they do not share any sort of memory. Okay. They only communicate with the help of message passing, right? So we have discussed these things while discussing the definition of distributed system in detail. And then actions of a process can be the communicating actions or the transforming actions. Okay. So communicating events can be send or receive events, and your state transforming actions can be, let's say a process is there and it has got a variable. So the moment we are changing the value of that variable, such execution is called as the state transforming actions. Okay. And how do we define an event? We define an event as an occurrence of a single action that a process carries out as it executes. Okay, so the moment we have got number of processes, and if any process carries out any single action, that single action is called as an event. Okay, so this is the model of the typical distributed system. Now, up to now, what do we know about time? We know that we cannot synchronize clocks perfectly across a distributed system, right? So we cannot in general use physical time to find out the order of any arbitrary pair of events occurring within a distributed system, because there is a limitation associated with physical clocks. Okay, so it is limited with very limited number of applications, right? We have come to know that the moment we try to incorporate the physical time, it is very difficult to maintain the synchronization in between the events. Okay, so if the processes are using that physical time, then it is going to be very difficult, because over the period of time, whatever notion of time we are using, uh, it tends to deviate. It tends to deviate, and the reasons are number of physical parameters are associated with that. That is the cause, right? And we have discussed in detail. Okay. So, so how to do the things? We can do the things by maintaining the logical ordering in between the events of the processes in a distributed system. Okay. So let's say the sequence of events within a single process Pi can be placed in a total ordering, and which is being denoted by this particular sign. And this sign is called as a occurs before between the events. For example, if we are writing this particular expression, which is E occurs before E dash, that means we can write this expression if and only if the event E has occurred before E dash at a particular process Pi. Okay, this I indicates a process ID. This is a process ID, and we can only write this expression when this event E has happened before E dash or occurred before E dash at process Pi. Okay. So in other words, if two events occur at the same process Pi, then they occurred in the order in which Pi observes them. Okay, this is very important one. For example, we have got a process. Okay. We have got a process, and in that process, there are a number of events. Let's say E1, E2, E3, and E4. And this is the direction of time. Okay. So at this particular process Pi, let's say this is process Pi. Okay. So E1 has been executed first, then E2, then E3, then E4. So in whichever order this particular process observes each one of them. Okay, for example, E1 has been observed first by process Pi, and then it has observed event E2. So in this case, you can say that E1 occurs before E2 at process Pi. Okay. Similarly, if Pi observes E3 thereafter, then you can say that E1 has occurs, or E1 occurs before E3 on process Pi. Okay, so this is what you can infer with the help of this particular statement. Okay. So right now we are talking about a single process only. Okay. So in a single process, if there are number of events, then you can establish a relationship between those events on the basis of observing. Okay. So in the sequence or the process, the moment it observes any event with a particular sequence, then that sequence will be defining the ordering in between those events. Okay, this is what we are trying to convey with the help of this particular sentence. Okay, and there is one more scenario where we might be having number of processes. Okay, let's say we have got a process P1, and in another case we have got a process P2. Okay, and it may possible that process P1 is trying to communicate with process P2. Okay, so we call this particular event as a send event, and this event as a receive event. Okay, so in this case we can infer that the send event will occur before the receive event. Okay, so until unless we send, we won't be able to receive. Okay, so in short, we have drawn the two conclusions. If the number of processes are there on a same process, then we can establish an order. Okay, and how do we establish order? The order in which a process has observed the event, the same orders can be followed to establish the happen before relationship, right? And in second case, if we got number of processes and there is an intercommunication in between those processes, and let's say there is a send receive pair, so send event is always going to happen before the receive event. Okay, or you can say that this event, which is your E1 in this case, E1 has happened before E2. And what is the reason? Reason is this is send and this is receive. Okay, this is the reason. Am I clear, students?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'll clear these things with the help of some more examples, because now the things are going to get more difficult. Okay, so now we have formulated all those findings over here, which we just discussed in the last slide. So let's say there are number of processes, and if each process Pi, some events has been observed before some other events, then we can say that in the order in which they have been observed can be used to define the ordering in between those events. Okay, so for example, in Pi, if E has been observed before E dash, then we can say that E has happened before E dash. Okay, so this particular notation is denoted as a happened before relationship or the causal order. Okay, so this is your first rule. Okay, this is called as a HB1. Then second one, for any message M, if there is a send receive pair, if there is a send receive pair, then you can say that the send message will always going to happen before the receive message. Okay, this is the second rule, and we treat as a HB2. And the third rule, if we have got events E, E dash and E double dash such that E has happened before E dash and E dash has happened before E double dash. Then with the help of these two, we can say that E has happened before E double dash. Okay, so over here, since E has happened before E dash and E dash has happened before E double dash. So therefore, we can say that E has happened before E double dash. Okay, so the notion of transitivity is there. Got it? So this is called as your third rule, HBP. So these three rules are called as the Lamport happened before relations, or the causal ordering, or the partial ordering. Okay, causal ordering, or partial ordering. Fine. So these rules are clear, students?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
good. So now this is again a time diagram where we have got three processes. P1. Okay, this is a time diagram. So we have got three processes, P1, P2, and P3. So we can see that the number of events has been occurred at each process individually. For example, at P1, event A and B is there. At process P2, the event C and D are there, and in process P3, event E and F are there. So if I ask you that, let me know in between B and D, which event has happened before which one? Please tell me. And how?
Sir,
B has
B
happened
happens
before C because send receive pair.
Okay. Then,
and C happens before D because we are considered for process P2 and C is happening for D.
right. Okay. So since we have got these two rules together, or so therefore we are able to infer that B has happened before D, right? And similarly,
Yes.
if I want to decide in between A and F, then
Sir, A happens before B for process PP1 and B happens before C for message M1S. B is sender and C happens before D for P2
right.
and D happens before F for message M2.
Good. So now all of you have got the idea, right, Harsh? So how the things are happening. Okay. So this is how the happen before relationship works in logical clocks. Okay. Now there are few things. For example, irreflexivity. Okay. We cannot say that event itself has happened before it. Okay. So if you got an event, let's say E, so we cannot say that E itself has happened before E. Okay. So this is not valid. Okay. Then partial ordering. Why we are calling it as a partial ordering, not a total ordering? Because all the events cannot be related by the happened before relationship. In this particular time diagram, you can see that you can establish a relationship between A and B, A and C, A and D, A and F, B and C, B and D, B and F, and what I mean to say that we are able to establish a rule in between A, B, C, D, and F. But we cannot draw any conclusion regarding event E. Right? Especially with respect to with respect to events A. Okay, so in this scenario, if I want to draw a conclusion in between A and E, that which event has happened before which one. So there is no hint at all through which we can say or we can infer that whether the event E has happened before or the A has happened before. Okay, because there is no any send receive pair, right? And both the events are not being occurred at a single process, and these are not following any transitive rules as well. So therefore, we are not in a position to infer, or you can say uh, to draw a conclusion that which event has happened before which one, right? So this is why we are calling it as a partial ordering. Is that clear?
So is that a negation sign? What? So
Yeah,
the
negation.
A happens before E. So before that, what is that a negation sign?
Yeah, it's a negation. Or you can say that this cannot be true.
Oh, okay, sir.
Okay. So now let us just try to create one algorithm. And before discussing that algorithm, let us just try to fix few things. So let's say that each process PI keeps its own logical clock, and we term this logical clock as LI. Okay, LI means the logical clock at process PI. Okay, which it uses to apply so-called Lamport timestamps to event. So whatever value this particular variable Li will be holding, will be calling that value as a Lamport timestamps. Okay. And a logical clock is a monotonically increasing software counter which associates a value in an order domain with each event in a system. So what we'll be doing in the coming slide, that we'll be having a time diagram. Okay. So we'll be having a time diagram like this. Okay. And there are going to be processes. Fine. And of course, there are going to be some number of events. Okay. So what we are trying to do now, we are just trying to assign some value to each process, let's say Li. Okay. For P1, this is going to be L1. For P2, this is going to be L2. And for P3, this is going to be L3. Okay. So each one processor will be having a counter associated with them. Okay. And these counter are going to increase by a particular value whenever an event is occurred, and that increment can be anything. That increment can be by 1, that increment can be by 5, or by any agreed value. Okay, so whenever an event is being observed, this particular counter is going to be increased by that value. Okay, so logical clock Li in a process Pi is a function which associates a value LIE in an ordered set V with each event En Pi. Okay. So we have formulated some rules regarding logical clocks. So if each process Pi is such that where some events are being observed, for example, E has been observed before E dash, then the associated value of E is going to less than the associated value of E dash. Okay, so in short, if E has happened before E dash, then the logical value or the clock value the counter value of E is going to be less than the counter value of E dash. This is what it means. Okay. Then in CR2, if A is the sending of a message by PI and B is the receipt of the same message by PJ, then the clock value of A is going to less than the clock value of B. Okay. So here we are assuming that A is a sending event and B is a receiving event. Okay. So in this case, the logical value, the clock value of A is going to be less than the clock value of B. Okay. So I means process number I and J means process number J. And in third rule, if we have got three events E, E dash and E double dash, then if E has happened before E dash and E dash has happened before E double dash, then this should be there. Which is the clock value of E has to be less than the clock value of E dash, and the clock value of E dash has to be less than the clock value of E double dash, or the clock value of E has to be less than the clock value of E double dash. Okay. So these are the three rules which we call as the logical clock rules, which are based on the happen before relationship. Okay. Is that fine, students?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now let us see what is there in this slide. So in this slide, we are seeing an algorithm which is called as a Lamport's algorithm. Lamport's algorithm for logical clocks. Okay. So let us see what is there in this algorithm. So in this algorithm, we have got two rules: logical clock rule 1 and logical clock rule 2. Okay. So what this algorithm is saying, that a counter gets incremented before each event is issued at a process Pi. Okay. So as we understood that in a digital system, there are going to be number of processes. So in a process, whenever an event is occurred, we have to increment the clock value of that value by 1. Okay. We have assumed that every time the increment is going to be done with 1. Okay. So whenever an event has been happened on a particular process Pi, we have to update its clock value. Okay. Since we have agreed upon the updation by 1, so this value will get incremented by 1. Okay. Then the second rule has been divided into two parts, A and B. So when Pi sends a message M, it piggybacks on M the value Li. Okay. So if we have got a process P1 and P2, and these are communicating events. Okay, we are assuming that these are communicating events. Okay, let's say this is A and this is B. Okay. So what we are saying, that in the communicating event, this particular event, or in this sequence, in this pair, send receive pair, a value, say, a value T will be sent over to the event B. Okay, so whatever its clock value, that clock value will be sent over to the receiving event, and we call this phenomena as piggybacking. Okay, so whenever there is a send receive message. So send message will send its clock value to the receiving event. Okay, this is what is being stated in the LC2A. So when PI sends a message M, it piggybacks on M, which is your message. This is your message. The value T, which is nothing but the clock value of PI. Okay, and now here comes the second part. So upon receipt of that message or upon receiving MT at a process PJ, it computes LJ, which is nothing but the maximum of LJ and the T. And what is T? The received clock value from A. Okay, so the received clock value and this is received clock value and the current value are being compared, and the maximum value is find out. Okay, which will be termed as a latest LJ, and then we apply LC1 before time stamping the event receive M. Okay, so first we need to compute the maximum value from these two, and after finding out the maximum value, we need to apply the first rule, which is your LC1. And what this rule says that we have to increment the value by 1. Okay, so if we have got these rules and the computations are being done with the help of these rules, then we can say that we are following or we are establishing a Lamport logical clock in a distributed system. And in this particular algorithm, we have incremented each clock value by 1. However, this can be any positive value. Okay, so in the Lamport logic clock, we have a very important observation to note, which is if we have got two events E and E dash such that if E has happened before E dash, then we can say that the clock value of E will be less than the clock value of E dash. Okay, so if we have followed these rules in a time diagram to find out the clock values, or you can say the associated clock values, then this will be there. Okay, if we can establish a happened before relationship in between two events, then this is going to be there always. Okay, so let us see with an example. Okay, for example, this is a time diagram again, and we have got three processes P1, P2 and P3. And now we can see that an event A has been occurred at P1. Okay, so what we understood in the algorithm that Li gets incremented before each event is issued at a process Pi. Okay, so initially the counter value are initialized with 0. Okay, so at P1, the moment event E has been observed, then this value will be incremented by 1 by this 2. So at present the value is 0, and since an event has been observed, so therefore the current clock value is going to be 1. Since we are talking about P1, so this is going to be L1. Okay, is that fine, students?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Similarly, for event B, now again the same rule will get applied. So at present the value is 1, so 1 plus 1 is going to be 2. Okay, so this is how this 2 is being written over here. Okay, now since B and C are the same distinct pair, okay, so M1 will contain the value 2. This time the value 2 is piggybacking to the C. So the moment this C receives the value, let's say 2, and the current value of C was 0. Okay, since it was initially initialized by 0. So the maximum of these two will get calculated, and the maximum is how much? 2, right?
2.
So now we have to again apply LC1. And what LC1 says, that you have to increment it by 1. So finally you will get a value 3. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So similarly, these calculations, this particular calculation has also been done. Okay, so over here, maximum between 1 and 4 has been calculated, and after calculating the maximum, it has been incremented by 1. Okay, so this is how this 5 has been there. Okay, so this is the example of establishing Lamport's logical clock in the distributed system. So I hope this algorithm is clear to all of you. If anyone has got any doubt, please let me know now. Anyone?
Sir, at F, no, it will choose between 4 and 1, right?
Right.
Okay, and then it will increment by 1.
Yes.
Yeah, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, so again, if we are talking about LJ, okay, then the maximum value, which is 1 and 4, will be evaluated first, which is 4. Okay, then we have to apply LC1, right? And what LC1 says, that we have to update this clock, which is your LG, by 1, right? And what is the current value of LG? 4. So it will be 5 at the end. Okay, you can see first you need to do this calculation, and then you have to apply this. Is that fine?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I hope that this algorithm is clear to all of you. If there is any doubt, please ask me, because we are going to see a lot of things on the basis of this algorithm in the coming slides. Okay, so now let's see this diagram carefully. In this diagram, we have got seed process P, Q, R. Okay, and again, the calculation for Lamport's clock has been done. Okay, so as we can see, that for this process particularly, for this one, the maximum of maximum between 1 and 2 has been calculated, and then it has been incremented by 1, right? And in this case, the maximum between 2 and 3 has been calculated. Okay, then it has been incremented by 1. Okay, so this is how the value 5 is coming over here. So this is another example, and this is one more example. So what I suggest to all of you, please note down these events only, don't note down the values, and then try to find it out. So let me leave the question. So let's say we have got 3 processes, P, Q, and R. Okay. Okay, so let's say these are the events. Okay. Now let me have the clock values for this diagram. Question is visible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please do. Yes, any answer? Rule number 41, Nishad.
यस सर
Question कर रहे हो?
सर ट्राई कर रहे हैं
मेघा, मेघा ताम्रकर.
Yes, sir.
You are an MTech student, right?
Yes, sir.
समझ में आ रहा है?
Yes, sir. आ रहा है.
हाँ, तो क्वेश्चन हुआ है ये सॉल्व फिर?
सब बना रही हूँ.
ओके. प्रत्युष. सुनंदा. सोनल साहू.
Yes, sir.
बन गया क्वेश्चन? आपकी आवाज क्लियर नहीं आ रही सुनल.
Yes, sir. Try to see.
ओके.
Sir, 4 answer.
4 answer. आंसर एक जो है यूनिक वैल्यू नहीं आएगी. Okay, so you are saying 4 only.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the values are going to be like this. For each event, you will be having some values. Okay, so you have to find out the corresponding values for each event.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, like that.
Sir, for process P, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay,
And for Q, it's 1, 2, 4, 6, 7. And for R, it's 1, 2, 4, 5, 8.
okay. So for Q, you are saying 1,
For
then
Q, it's 1, 2, 4, 2.
4.
Yes, sir, 1, 2, 4, 6, 7.
Okay.
सर क्यू के लिए 1 2 3 5 6 होगा.
यस सर.
क्या है?
1 2 3
Sir,
5.
1, 2,
सर क्यू
3,
के लिए
5,
1 2 3 5 6 होगा.
Yeah. It should
1 2 3 5 6.
be, it should be 3. It should be 5.
1 2 3 4 7.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
सर 5 होगा वो.
सर 5 होगा.
ठीक है.
1 2 3 5 6.
सर वो 4 से मैसेज रिसीव करेगा, पी से तो 5 होगा ना वो.
ठीक है, आप सब अपना अपना वैल्यू इवैल्यूएट करके रख लो, है ना? ठीक है. सो व्हाट आई विल डू, अभी वैल्यूज कौन बता रहा है? योर नेम प्लीज.
शिवम.
शिवम. रोल नंबर?
सर 77.
Roll number 77. So Shivam is saying that for P the values are going to be
1 2 3 4 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And for Q is going to be
सर क्यू के लिए 1 2 3 5 6.
1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Okay. And for R,
सर 1 2 3 4 7.
1, 2, 3, 4, 7. Okay. Anybody else apart from Shivam?
सर आदर्श.
Adarsh. Roll number?
901.
901. So what are your values for Q?
पी के लिए 1 2 3 4 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Q?
सर क्यू के लिए 1 2 3 5 6.
1, 3, 5, 6.
1 2 3 5 6.
Okay, the same value. For R?
आर के लिए भी वही है. 1 2 3 4 7.
Okay. Anybody who has got values different than this one? Anyone who has got the
Sir,
values different than this one?
Sir.
Yeah.
Sir, Devesh MTech. Sir, for Q, it's 1, 2, 4, 6, 7.
Deve,
Yes, sir.
Deve, MTech.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, it's same for the P. And for Q, it's 1, 2, 4, 6, 7.
1, 2, 3, 4.
No, sir. One for Q, it's 1, 2, 4, 6, 7.
1, 2, 4, 6, 7.
And for R, it's 1, 2, 4, 5, 8.
1, 2, 4, 5,
8.
8. Okay. This is for R. This is for Q. Okay, anybody else who has got values different than these two? Anybody? Purnima?
Yes, sir.
आपने कुछ सॉल्व किया है वाला? क्वेश्चन बना आपके वाला?
Yes, sir. Same values as roll number 77.
Okay. ठीक है. Okay, fine. So now let us find out the values. Okay. For process P, the first value is going to be 1. Okay, so initially it was 0 for P, it was 0 for Q, and it was 0 for R. Okay, the moment we have observed the first event on P, its clock value is going to be incremented by 1. Okay, so hence it will be value 1. Okay, and the moment the second event has been occurred, it will get incremented again by 1, so its value will be 2. Okay, for Q the value 1, for R the value 1. Okay, and over here it is going to be value 2. Fine, and over here again the value 2 is there. Is there any doubt up to now? Up to now, any doubt for the students who are not able to solve it out? 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 2. These are straightforward. And now, for this event, we have to compare this one and this one. And the maximum is 2, right? So, after finding out the maximum, we have to increment it by 1, right? And then for this event, again we have to increment the current clock value by 1. Okay, and this one will be 5 accordingly. So for process P, all the calculations have been done. Fine. Now for process Q, for this event we have to consider value 2 and 2, right? And the maximum is 2, so the value will be 2, and then we have to increment it by 1, so the value will be 3. And over here again we have to compare the value 4 and 3, and the maximum is 4, and then we have to increment it by 1, so value will become 5, and over here the value will be 6. Okay, over here we have to calculate the maximum of 2 and 2, right? So the maximum will be 2, and then we have to increment it by 1, so value will be 3, and then 4, and over here we have to calculate the maximum of 6 and 4, so the maximum is 6, and then we have to increment it by 1, so therefore the value will be 7. Okay, so Devesh, is it clear? Devesh? The students who has given this answer, Devesh? Purnima? Priyanshu?
Yes, sir.
Clear हो गया क्वेश्चन वाला?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Gopali, Anil?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there anyone who has still any doubt in this one? If there is no doubt, then I'll end the class over here only. Okay, so I assume now that all of you got the concept. Fine. So with this, I'm ending the class. Thank you, students.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.